Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another Restoration. My name is Lori Ann Smith. I'm glad to be here. It's Monday morning, May 29th, 7 o'clock in the morning. Just waking up, having a coffee. And so hopefully you're having a good morning so far. And I think it's Memorial Day down in the States there. We had our long weekend last weekend. And ours is Victoria Day up here in Canada. But I'm from the States originally and grew up there, lived there 30 years of my life, and then moved to Canada. And so happy Memorial Day to everybody down there. And we'll get right into this information. This is really just looking at this is a healing journey for me that I do, mainly to keep me on track so that I'll keep working on it. So I don't keep putting it off for another year, 6 months or whatever. So, hopefully it's helping other people too. And it's really just a morning reflection, how am I doing? We can ask ourselves these things, as a survivor of abuse of any type, really. It doesn't have to be child abuse. How am I doing? How am I doing on my healing journey? How am I feeling? How am I, what do I need to work on, sort of thing. So that's why I'm doing this show first thing in the morning. And before my day gets started, and then I just run out of time. So that's basically why I do this in the morning. We're just looking at a morning reflection. Any particular things I need to work on? For instance, how am I feeling? Do a safety checklist if you're a survivor of abuse. Make sure that you're safe enough to be listening. You can get that information from lots of places. Havoca.org has info on it. ASCA Survivor to Thriver Manual. Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, ASCA, a Morris Center program. They have a Survivor to Thriver manual, and it's huge. It's a really awesome workbook, actually. It's free on their website, and the first chapter, Safety First, it's like 60 pages long. I say this on every show, really. That's because it's a really great workbook. So I hope everybody will go check it out. I actually went through it years and years ago. And but I read that chapter. It's very important to read that to make sure that you're safe enough so that you won't be triggered and go backward in your healing journey. And, when you're listening to this type of information, anything to do with abuse or somebody else's story, you want to make sure that you're okay and you're safe enough to be listening so that you don't hurt yourself or hurt somebody else and go backward in your go backward in your healing journey, right? You want to just take care of yourself and do the right thing. And if this sort of thing that you think might bother you, then just turn the show off and don't listen to it or anything like it, just to make sure that you're safe enough first before you start listening to this sort of stuff, right? And if you're anybody else, you just listen at your own discretion, because I'm talking about abuse and situations that arise from abuse, as a survivor, and it can be kind of disturbing for some people. So you want to know what's good for you to listen to and make the right decision for yourself, right? So we'll get right into this. We're looking at morning reflection. How am I doing? This morning I'm actually feeling pretty good. I did a video last night to add to my Born in Hell video collection. It's just a set of videos that I put on my Born in Hell website. It's just Born in Hell video series, I called it. This may be the last one I do. I'm not sure. It's the one that I just sort of summed up the whole thing, talking about the actual effects, the what the abuse did to my body, because I don't usually I don't talk a whole lot about that and what I've had to go through, try to learn to, how to live with this, right? So with the physical problems and I usually mostly talk about the emotional, psychological damage done. And so I just did a video on that last night. So that was a little triggering. And last couple of weeks just have been a little bit stressful. Lots going on in my life that's been a little bit much, just because someone came back into my life from a long time ago, back when I was like a little kid. They knew me before I knew them. So in other words, I was probably 2 or 3 or something like that, or 4, maybe 4 years old when this person started hanging around with my older brothers. So obviously I don't remember him at that stage, but he remembers me, and he knew me as a young girl. And it's kind of triggered me to have this person come back into my life. It did trigger me. And his memories are obviously a little different than mine. He lived in our house actually for a little while, this guy. He was a good friend of my brother's. And my parents just, really cared for him, let him hang around. I know that both my parents actually cared for this guy. Even though they were abusing each other and my siblings and myself. he didn't witness the things that I'm talking about. He has no clue about. So he's trying to kind of, wrap his head around it, and in one sense be supportive, and in another sense, sort of saying, "Are you sure that's the way it was?" Right? And the issue is all my stuff is verifiable, and so it's all 100% verifiable because it's all traceable. And there's people living today that would be able to back my story, as well as medical reports and everything else, and child protection reports and everything else, and gynecologist reports and everything else. So I did a video last night, sort of just talking about what the physical abuse, what the abuse did to my body, and so it's been triggering, extremely triggering, and a little bit harsh. So, how am I doing? I'm doing okay because I'm holding in there, but I'm extremely tired and almost extremely disappointed, because this person that hung around with my brothers should have recognized the fact that my brothers were drug users. My mom was enabling them to allow my brothers to do drugs around the house. So when I was a little girl, my brothers were doing drugs around the house, and they used to give me some of whatever they were doing, So, when I'm 4 years old, smoking pot in the bedroom with them, taking puffs off of joints and stuff. And that should have been a clue right there for somebody that there was problems in the home, because nobody lets their kids, do drugs and shoot up and do whatever they were doing, cocaine, whatever they were doing. You don't allow your children to do these things around your house, because if you do, there's something wrong with you as a parent. You want your kids to get off the drugs. You don't encourage them to use drugs. My mom enabled them so that she could manipulate them. My mom was manipulating everybody because she was abused. She was trying to get some support, and she was trying to gain the support of her children. She had already abused my older siblings. My dad had too. So at this point, at this stage in their lives, they allowed their teenage sons, not my dad, but my mom did, to wear their hair long, drop out of school. They just let them drop right out of school. No problem. My mom was like, they don't have to go to school if they don't want to. I remember when my brother Howard dropped out, and because he's 7 years older than me, but I do remember when he dropped out. And my mom just let him drop out and do drugs, That's called enabling. That's abuse, people. I hope everybody realizes that. That is not okay. You don't allow your children to ruin their lives right in front of you, as they were already ruined. My siblings were abused long before I was abused, right? And so, she wanted the support, see, because she needed somebody to protect her from my dad, is really what it was. And she needed the support of her sons, her boys, right, who were, mid-teens, older teens. And she needed their support so that they would come to her aid when my dad was trying to rape her, especially at night, or if he was trying to beat on her. So she just let them do whatever they wanted. Now, me and my sister, we couldn't do anything that we wanted, and we were just made to just sit there, shut up, and behave ourselves. And there was rules for them and rules for us, right? We had to go to school, and we didn't have any. We didn't have any excuses for not going to school. For instance, if I had a big welt or a bruise on my face or something, or I was sick or anything like that, I had to go to school, And I would look at my mom, and after, especially after a beating, that she had dished out, where it was noticeable on my face, with bruises and welts and stuff and scratches. And I'd tell her, "What am I going to tell my teacher about this?" And be pointing to my face, and my mom would be like, "Just tell your teacher that I hit you, and I'm going to hit you again." See, so this person that came back into my life, he wants to be in denial about all this, but that's because he doesn't know. So therefore, how could you tell somebody, an abuse survivor, what they went through when you don't know? So, this triggered me, caused me to go not backward in my healing journey, set me off a little bit to an anger point that I have to now get back under control. Because now my anger is back up, and I actually had done quite well working through a lot of my anger, and now it's back. And so it's difficult. It really is. These things can happen. So many times in our lives as survivors of abuse, there will be someone come along that sits there and says, "Are you sure that's the way it happened? Could they really have done that? I mean, your mom was so nice. She made cookies and made potato salad." It's like, I talked about this for years already on all of my shows. If anybody, I've done 1,150 odd shows. And, I talked about this already. My parents were well liked and well supported. They had lots of support. And people loved my mom and they loved her cooking. And so all they can remember about her, because she's passed away now, she died when I was 30. All they can remember about her now is the fact that she made cookies, these wonderful cookies, and she was so nice to them. And I'm like, well, that's what you know of my mom. That's the side that she showed you. See, that's, of course, she didn't go around beating up on all the neighbors. She didn't beat up on the neighbors' kids either. She was very good to the neighbors' kids. So this is the problem with abuse, right? And if you do abuse studies, which I've studied abuse for now since really since 2007, I started taking a look at it. And then because that's when I started my healing journey. But 2009 is when I really started getting into it, because I was with Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and we actually were taking abuse courses on what the dynamics of abuse. And adults and older, young adults, have relationships with adults, not the children. And so that's why people cannot wrap their head around it, because they didn't have a relationship with that child. They had a relationship with either the adult or the abuser in the family who was older. And so, of course, things are going to look a little different to them. And so the sad thing is people's perceptions of these abusers, the people who were the abusers in the situation, their perception of them, of course, is going to be different than the one of the victim of that abuse, of that abuser, right? And so what's really sad is then there's really no support for the survivor of the abuse. And there's lots of support for the abusers, right? And that is why it's really basically that, survivors of abuse are quite often re-victimized over and over and over again by their past, by other people, who knew them in the past and knew the abusers and feel quite differently about things. It's like, well, you didn't see it, you weren't there, you know what I mean? But people knew their family had problems. It was obvious. I mean, there was police around all the time. My parents were busted on child abuse charges. They were brought up on child abuse charges. They were not convicted. They were charged with child abuse and arrested and had to go to court. And they should have removed us from the home, but they didn't. So that's, whatever. I blame my parents. I don't blame the system. I blame my parents for doing what they did. I actually had to get down to the real root of the whole thing, is who was responsible for the abuse in my home? That was my mother, my dad. And then who was responsible for the child sexual abuse in my home? Well, my brother, raping me. I don't know if any of the other siblings were. I don't know if my brother, sexually abused any of those other siblings. I have a feeling that my dad, because of something that I saw when I was really little, I have a feeling that my dad sexually abused my brother, who then, when I was 8, sexually abused me. So who were the abusers? I had to sit there and think. I thought, no, it's not the system that let me down. It's my parents that let me down. And then my older brother, right? That's who let me down. So I don't blame the system for that. I blame my parents, because they shouldn't have done what they did. That's their responsibility. And I hold them completely accountable. So this is the week that I've had. It's been incredibly difficult to get through. And normally, I would have probably just canceled these set of shows and not done shows for a month or two, just to try to get myself, my feelings, my thought patterns, and everything sort of back into place, But, and I may end up doing that. I may end up taking a break here. So if you do, just check my show page, and I'll probably, if I end up doing that, I'm not sure if I'm going to yet. I'm going to sort of think about it for a couple of days, but I may take a break for a few weeks. And just to do some breathing work, some meditation, which I don't have a lot of time for because I'm so busy. And so I might actually do that just to get myself sort of in a good, positive place, sort of a better place than I am right now, right? These are the things that we can do for ourselves. I can't just not work. I have to keep working, and I can't just not look after my terminally ill husband. He needs my help, and I can't just not look after myself either. You know what I mean? So sometimes you just have to take a break on other things. So I might take a break on this show, but don't worry, I'll be back. If you're really that interested in listening to what I have to say, I'll be back. But, it's just horrific. It's just absolutely horrific, And I know that I did a show, actually, a Survivor Weekend video on my Born in Hell. I actually posted it there. Or you can see my stuff on YouTube if you want. It's all over the place. And I did a Survivor Weekend show because I thought, so many people don't have validation. And I'm so thankful that I've got validation because I can shove it back in these naysayers' faces and say, there you go. And I'm not going to start posting naked pictures of myself all over the web, showing the scars and the actual bruising that was so bad that actually damaged my skin on my back and stuff. And I'm not going to start pointing out on my legs where the physical abuse damaged my legs. I'm not going to, I'm sorry, I've got proof. I even have people that are still living today that are adults that would witness me and come behind me and stand behind me. This is I feel bad for survivors out here if you're listening to this. For survivors out here who have no validation and nobody believes them, and the people just sit there and question them. Did that really happen? Are you sure that's the way that it went down? And it's like, this is so distressing, and this is why I'm doing these. That's basically why I do these shows, is to be a support for other survivors out here to say, you know what? No, you don't pay attention to those people that weren't there and don't know. Just like me, I'm going to have to blow off what that person was basically saying to me. I'm going to have to just get over it because he wasn't there. He doesn't know. So why should I have that be so important to me, what he thought? Probably because he was my brother's friend, and I would have thought that he would have recognized that my brothers were really, really messed up. And they were. They're dead, mainly. There's only one living now. One suicide, the one that sexually abused me, committed suicide at the age of 33. And he had tried several times. But the last time that he actually made it, he was committing suicide. They said it was actually that sexual asphyxiation thing, where you strangle yourself, while you're getting off. And he just kind of went a little too far and died. Well, and then people thought, well, maybe that's just what he was doing and he never was suicidal. It's like, no, because he had sliced his wrists years before. And who knows what else he had done. But I know for sure he did that because he came to stay with us to heal. And he had sliced his wrists up his arms, up the veins, not across. He went up the big vein in his arm. They had to stitch him up. And, he was trying to kill himself. Oh, definitely. And so, he was really screwed up from the abuse. And not only that, he just did so many drugs. And my dad, he's the one that my dad had beat on, and my parents got arrested on child abuse charges. So my dad had it in for him. And I think he sexually abused him. I'm quite sure of it. That's why he sexually abused me. So that's horrific. And, I would think that, these people that knew my brothers would have recognized that there was some serious problems in the home just by my brother's behaviors. And just by the fact that you could see that there was some serious problems within that home. But see, my mom was so sweet and nice to everybody when they came over. And she was so good to other people. And that's the thing. See, my mom was abused, and she was doing whatever she could to get support and to gain support. She was abused as a child as well, horrifically, by her mother, and then went into this abusive marriage with my dad. So she was just abused her whole life. See, and she was using people for whatever she could get, because she was just. That's just how she operated, man. She was looking for help and looking for support. Well, when the child services actually got involved, child protection, because they were brought up on abuse charges, she had the opportunity to get out. She could have got out. She could have let us go. We would have all been put into foster care. That's fine. We would have maybe had an opportunity. Maybe. I say maybe because I know lots of foster care children who went in through the foster care system and ended up being abused. So. But we might have had an opportunity for a better life, right? Instead of just being condemned and cursed to a life of hell. It almost would have been better to take a chance, right? I think the chance might have been better, I used to weigh it out, because my mom didn't want me. She was always threatening to put me in foster care. And I wanted her to love me, I wanted her to take care of me. So this is horrific, And then at the end there, just for her to tell me that she never wanted any of us. And I told her, I said, so you mean to tell me that you and Dad put us through all of this crap and all of this abuse for nothing? That you told the judge that you didn't want to lose your children because you loved your children. That's what she told the judge. That's what she threw in our face every time she was trying to make us feel bad, I'm not a bad mother. I told the judge that I wanted you children, and I should have just killed you when you were sleeping, and whatever, then beating on you, She used to use that as a tool, like a weapon. And it's like, yeah, no, she never wanted any of us, right? So for everybody who bought in on my mom's smiles and bought in on her cookies and bought in on her potato salad and the fact that she would let you drink beer at our house, or whatever you were doing. For everybody who just bought in on that bullshit from my mother, you bought into manipulation is what you bought into. Because at the end there, I got the truth. When 29 years old, that's why I ran away to Canada. Because I finally left, I was like, that's enough. You're not using and abusing me anymore. She couldn't physically beat me up, really. She stopped beating me up after 17. But the thing is the emotional, psychological abuse was still there. And then, at 29 years old, just the year before she died, telling me that she never wanted any of us. I was like, you could have let us go. You could have let us go. Why did you and Dad put us through all of this if you didn't want us? You could have just let us go. My heart was ripped to shreds, man. Because I always kind of thought that if I just stuck around and was good enough and did enough for my mom and protected her and tried to protect her and did all I could to help her out, which I did, that eventually I could gain her love, right? I wasn't necessarily trying to buy it. I was just trying to earn it. And then she drops the bomb. I'm 29 years old. She drops the bomb. She never wanted any of us. None of her children, she said. Not one of us. So for everybody who bought into my mom's bullshit manipulation, shame on you for being so stupid and blind. Because there was a lot of people that bought in on that. So that's kind of why, I need to take a break and get myself sort of, organized and whatnot. So I think that what we'll do is we'll pick up this Havoca information because this is really interesting, this stuff they have on feelings. You can go there. I put the tab into the chat room. But it's Havoca, Havoca, information for survivors. It's Havoca.org. Go to their survivor tab, and then there's a section. There's a set of tabs on the left-hand side of the page there, and there's one called Feelings. And this is a very long, lengthy article, but you can go read that for yourself in the meantime. It's really quite interesting, and I like what they have to say about most of it. Some of it I was reading through, and I just, it's kind of like, well, I don't know. But for the most part, it's really good just looking at, honoring your feelings, allowing yourself to feel what you need to feel. Affirmations, possibly common faulty beliefs, right? Should statements. This is what we'll pick up on Friday, right? Because I'm going to take the week and just, relax and try to get. I'm also very busy this week, unfortunately. So that's kind of, probably where I'm at this morning is just this morning reflection of the aftermath of dealing with somebody who's come back into my life from so long ago, who's trying to manipulate me into thinking a different way about things. And I'm like, look, buddy, you're not, you can't come into my life so many years later and tell me who my mother was. I'll tell you who my mother was. She was an abusive woman who hurt me physically, emotionally. She allowed my brother to rape me. I say that on purpose because it's true. She knew that what my brother was doing to me because I told her after the third assault because I was getting sick, starting to get an infection, and I thought, I could die. I was starting to get very sick, so I told her what my brother was doing. She said, "That's not my problem. That's your problem. What do you want me to do about it?" Well, she yelled at me. She wasn't just saying it. And I said, "Well, how am I supposed to? What am I supposed to do to get him to stop?" And she's like, "Wrap yourself up like a mummy in your blankets at night." It pushed me out of the way and left my room. So I told her what was going on. And so for the next, 7-8 months, she just turns a blind eye to the fact that my brother's raping me. She did not do the right thing by me. She physically abused me, causing me damage to my skin, to my bones, to my head, to my vision. She caused me damage to my muscles. That's just the physical stuff. She caused damage to my spirit, my soul. She damaged my entire life. Just her alone. That's minus the part. That's without looking at the abuse from my dad and my brother. My mother hurt me incredibly bad. You know, and for people out there who don't have validation and there's nobody around to believe you, you do not give up. Not ever. You know, there's, like I said before, there's, if you don't trust a therapist or a counselor, there's lots and lots of websites out there. Anonymous websites, actually it's anonymous support groups, where you don't even have to give your real name. And you can go on and you can talk to people in an anonymous situation who have been there. They know where you're coming from. They know what you've been through because they've been through something similar. And they can be a word of encouragement for you. They can help you look for resources and information that might help you out. And it's also just nice to be able to share your story in a safe place. And it's also nice to have somebody support you by coming back to say whatever they're going to say to you, that they believe you and that never should have happened and that you didn't deserve that, right? And it's just unfortunate what the world, the attitude of just the world towards abuse. And I mean, there's so many survivors of abuse, every kind of abuse you can think of. And the world just sits there and just says, can't you just get over it? Are you sure you weren't just making it up? Are you sure it really happened? It's like, this kind of stuff, it just, boggles my mind. And I used to just sit there and wish that those people that thought like that would have the same thing that I've had done to me done to them. Just to be mean. I sit there and I think, yeah, wouldn't it be great if these naysayers and these assholes out here who think that it's okay to go ahead and just, diss survivors of abuse, if they could have to go through the same thing that I had to go through. That's having your head busted open by your mother, left in a pool of your own blood, sexually abused by your brother, bleeding on your bed at night, hurting so bad you can't even stand up to go to the bathroom. And even if you could stand up to go to the bathroom, you can't go to the bathroom because it hurts so bad. And having your ribs damaged by your dad. I wish that, sometimes I do. I sit there and I think, wouldn't it just be great if all these naysayers could have all this stuff that was done to me done to them? And then I could sit there and say, gee, can't you just get over it? You sure it really happened like that? Maybe you're just exaggerating just a little bit. But the better part of me that hates abuse and really hates abusers. I hate it. I hate abuse and I hate abusers because it's a choice. Abuse is a choice. People do that on purpose. My mother hurt me on purpose. My dad hurt me on purpose and my brother hurt me on purpose. So the better part of me that hates abusers and hates abuse says, no, I don't. I wish that nobody ever would have to deal with what us survivors have had to deal with. It's a shame that any one of us, that anyone has to suffer through this stuff and then try to learn how to live afterwards a decent life, So, I just, at some point, we can't listen to those voices coming at us from the world, whoever these people are in our lives, who pretend to be supportive and then just end up trying to manipulate you some more, which means they're mentally ill, right? And abusers themselves, because otherwise they wouldn't do that, right? Is to make sure that they don't have access to your life. Make sure that they have no room in your life and no say in your life. And move on to healthy people. Healthy people who respect you, who care about you, and who are in no way and by no means going to try to manipulate you so that the abusers look better to them than they really were. or they really are, That's why I say reach out and get some help. Do not struggle on your own, So many times we don't have people to talk to. So many times there is no one in our life. So what I'm saying is reach out and get some help. There's survivors. There's anonymous websites. There's crisis lines. There's people waiting to talk. There's all kinds of survivor stuff out there for people who are survivors. You make sure you reach out and you get some help, right? Don't struggle on your own. Take care, everybody, and we should be picking up here Friday. If I decide to take a break at any point, I'll just put a big note on my show page in the very front there. In big capital letters or something so you can see it. Just to let people know, And, take good care of yourself and be good to yourself, kind to yourself. Be good to, be good to those around you, Don't hurt yourself or others, and have a good life, right? Be decent to yourself. Get the help that you need, that we so deserve, right? And keep reaching out, right? Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.